Nej, men det här som du gör med koncepten.
Ja.
Jag försökte ju förstå, för koncepten kommer ibland i form av ord och ibland i form av liksom former.
Ja.
Eller som det här är de här rörelser. Olika typer av rörelser. Och tid, stillastående, den här liksom, och som bor och som biter sig i svansen. Spiralen och liksom, där är bild i bilden. Frame. Eller liksom, och att det kopplar så här olika verk och filmer som försöker att förstå olika liksom tankeformer. Att koncepten kommer som
rörelser helt enkelt. För att de är olika rörelser. Men det här är också väldigt intressant, för det är så typiskt dig att alltså jag kan känna igen mig i det här att vi gör en karta. Och den är ju extremt bra för att sortera. Men sen vet vi att den kartan är inte till för att följa. Den är till för att skapa ett utrymme där man kan vara fri och improvisera mellan.
Och du ser den här messy shit. Det är ju ett sätt för mig att försöka så här klargöra någonting. Men när den är där, den är ju förvirrande liksom. Eller jag vet inte om den... Men det är väldigt mycket liksom att så här strukturera så här, där och relationer och 3 olika sätt att förstå någonting på. Det är liksom
en slags sortering för att det är så extremt komplext. Men jag tänker att just den här du sa någonting om att apropå att lösa the unsolvable. Oh no, we should speak English.
We should speak English.
No, you spoke about the unsolvable question. The unsolvable question is that you, I mean, to me at least, is that you know there is a grid, there's a map. You could kind of expand different positions of ways of seeing, and you need to do that. But still, you can never grasp it anyway. So have this kind of doubleness of you can never grasp, but you need to try to grasp.
Yeah, but
anyway.
you know, you said something years back when we were trying to write those texts on public art. And because you insist on, well, you're such a thinking person and you use concepts, and concepts, you know, mean material and all kinds of things. But you insist on like, okay, public art always have to deal with act. You have to act. So something that, and act, well, and a kind of promise of transformation or building something, or, you know, and I always thought about thinking as transformative, you know, or if I change the way I see something, I change the world. So I have this piece, you know, the where is it? Magical transformations of the world. So taking from Sartre, it's all about like me changing my mood, my way of seeing, my way of understanding,
your
and
position.
I have already changed the world. So, but when you're dealing with public art, at the same time you also have to act in the physical space, or you have to give function, or you have to, you know. So now I don't know where I'm getting with this, but it's that thing with acting, which is also a challenge for me. What kind of act?
What kind of act does the act of the public sculpture or the public work or the monument kind of do?
Yes. And so what I like with your project is that it's both the thinking through, you know, transformative language, relationships and so on, but it's also working with the physical space and the material and leaving something there, and you know, and at the same time, you know, I'm thinking about all these things.
But I mean, when you do this kind of, in a way, this is a mapping of different ways of thinking, the spiral thinking, for example, and the circular thinking, and the kind of crashing thinking, or the frame thinking. Would you say that you kind of, is that a map for how you what you want your work to do, and do you kind of choose, this is the way I want this work to do, or would you say it's only a map for like a general thinking with art? Or do you kind of,
I think in a way it's a map of my practical knowledge.
Yeah, yeah.
So each one has an experience of making a piece and thinking with film or thinking with or a number of works. So it's really related to knowledge in a way. Like, what do I know and what do I try to understand?
Yeah.
Or what have I learned in a way? And
I was talking a bit to Juan-Pedro before you came about this feeling of not being very sure. I mean, or maybe that people say that they don't recognize. I mean, you don't follow a certain kind of line. It's not like, I mean, you could have continued doing your filmed films in spaces, but you always seem to kind of also take a completely different position in your work. I mean, your work methods, I would say, mostly. So, I mean, if I say Loulou is painting, some might be super surprised, but I think but that is only the form. So the form you choose is always also connected to a way to position yourself anew. I mean, to decide that you will do this enormous giant painting, it's also an idea that you want to do this enormous gesture, and because you also think that that will move you into another position. So it's not only I have a position and then I do something that kind of show that position. It's more like I throw something out because I want to come to a new position. Hence you needed to do an enormous painting and not a film. Would you say that this kind of throwing yourself into extremely complex new materials, new methods, always is something that is part of your method, and a kind of non-method?
Yeah. Looking back, yes, but it's part of meaning making. Why would it be meaningful for me to make another work?
Yeah, yeah. Hence, people can think that we shift ways of working and are not concentrated. Whereas there is a constance in this kind of throwing yourself into something that will throw yourself into a new position.
Yeah.
That I could see is actually going through. It's if I see a line, it says if I recognize something, this is kind of also with you, Juan-Pedro, that this is kind of the constant in our processes to move. But when we finished in my studio, we were with this. And then we avoided, and we were really happy when the camera shut off, because we know that we did not come very far.
No.
And the feeling of also this, that you need to take a decision to make a form, otherwise you will do nothing, but the form will always be a lie.
Yeah, yeah. And it was my problem with the stabilization.
Yeah.
And what that means. No, okay, so then my next thought was about this, what kind of importance we put in ways of seeing, you know, like, so why, how can I work with criticality as an artist if it's a gesture towards, you know, a dialogue that doesn't happen? What does it mean then? At the same time, I'm still interested in this seeing. So it's a way of, or which is the destabilizing gesture in a way, like trying to see something that is not obvious, or trying to.
Yeah, but it could also be stabilizing. I mean, if you have had a thought system that is super porous and fragmented, then the destabilization of that would also lead to maybe a stabilization. You know, I don't think that destabilization per se put yourself in a destabilized position. Do you understand what I mean?
No.
So I mean, that's what we actually, I mean, the destabilization is not bad. It is a way to stabilize. We would never be stabilized.
Oh yeah, it's like these people who says like when you travel and see the world, you become a better person. It's like it doesn't happen.
Not sure.
Okay. Yeah.
No, but I think destabilization is still valid if it's not kind of a kitschy approach to kind of I'm the person that completely rip off that show the emperor to be naked. That kind of position as an artist is almost like a kitschy trope for me. I mean, I cannot promise you, and I cannot also promise that it is the best. Maybe the emperor should be perceived as dressed, where I don't know. So destabilization as a kitschy thing, it means nothing.
As performed for the audience.
Yeah, as performed for the audience and just be the one that crack things. It's not so fun. I mean, I would really like to build things. I want to. We talked about that in the car. I mean, to do things that stabilize people is fantastic. In terms of this monument you talked about, that you did a suggestion, for me that is a stabilization in the extremely the big meaning of really do collective work towards a better society. I mean, it's simple. That is stabilizing.
Okay, so the porous thing and the improvisation is, and what I like with the time, because it's also a way of trying to act in public space, but also really resisting permanence. Because you mentioned, there's one thing I think that about planning. I guess planning is also one thing. What does it mean to plan? What does it mean to plan for permanence?
Yeah, what kind of permanence do you want?
Yeah.
If you want a permanence in terms of people should have things to do and I decide what they should do, then like the over-programmed public space that we have been talking about, then it's a bad permanence. But a permanence that the public space exists and is a space for freedom for you, that permanence I want. So permanence is not also bad. I think this is the thing, because in this thing you have been reading that I did for a public commission, I am also very afraid of improvisation, the unprogrammed and the porous, all this kind of, it's also this kind of like this destabilization words. They are also super dangerous. A porous state could mean a free state, but a porous state could, I mean, it's what we have now.
Yeah.
That we cannot trust to critique.
Yeah.
So porous is also a dangerous thing.
So then, as an artist, I've been trying to be free, in a way, right, and demanding freedom and demanding, a space for my subjective sensibility, and all these things, and that doesn't work in the same way, right, when you work. And so I think that so the kind of improvisation that I'm trying to understand is the one within music where it seems like an oxymoron. Like if you think of improvisation as the freedom from rules, the right to act without rules, which is a freedom that artists often try to demand in public space. That don't force me to follow this and this. For my work, the premises of my work needs to. It's the strength of fine art will come from the level to which my freedom is allowed, and so there's this negative and positive freedom. I know we've talked about it also. So I'm trying to understand, not to fall into this hole of negative freedom, right? And how can we understand positive freedom in different ways through music? So you have this conduction with Robert Morris, who conducts improvisation, which shouldn't be possible, right? Because improvisation is musicians playing without a conductor, a director. But he's trying to find a way of organizing freedom then, or organizing this, and that's what takes place in Charles Mingus with his rotary perception, and that's take place in Ornette Coleman, and in different ways. And those concepts that they sometimes write, sometimes just talk about, sometimes
Just
you
do.
see it and other people write about, are these kind of ways of the concepts for exactly this kind of paradox of trying to deal with.
Yeah, but they also have all these jazz standards that they all know, so they have like a basic common language. That we all know all these standards. I mean, it's thick books. I'm so impressed by this. That, you know, so you learn these, and then you, if you want to, you can also, of course, not use them. But you have also a kind of a basic formal language that you can. That is this kind of map or these rules, and then you can. And then you have to be present. You have to be. You need to have a good day to make a good, or a really bad day to make an extremely good improvisation within that standard or this system.
But I think because there are, if we compare two, maybe two are interesting to talk about. One is Ornette Coleman, who when he improvises, he speaks about a melody that everybody plays, but that everybody plays in whatever way they want, without putting too much worry about the final result, in a way. So you have all your partnerships in your project, and everybody, you have some kind of melody that you've agreed upon, but then you allow everyone to play it however they want, and you don't surveil or organize or, you know. So there is that's in a way a kind of power of instruction, or the first set and then it goes. Or
then they have kind of a grid.
They have a kind of a grid. I need to study this more, but that's the starting point. And then you have this rotary perception of Mingus, who hates basically standard jazz, or he hates that, where you have the beat, and for him to have the groove, you cannot fall on the beat.
No, then you have to be present.
Because there's no groove when everybody falls on the beat. And so then he says, this is the beat, and this is the ring I place around it, and I want all my musicians to play within this sphere. And there's it's a problem when people fall in the beat, and it's a problem when people fall outside of this. And so there is this. This is a form in a way, but the result is groove.
But this is really good, because then we have this kind of mapping. And this also not only fragment and map, because then you end up in concept and this kind of a criticality that we kind of are confused with, that we are kind of raised in, that we know didn't work, it doesn't work. And then we have the, so to speak, the I, the one, the idea of this. So then you have this kind of, not the polarization, but you have these two systems where you kind of, and if you kind of are in between these here, then you will always in a way be in doubt and in risk, and when in doubt and in risk you need to be extremely attentive and have this spherical attention, so you can kind of actually listen and act in a sensitive way, which
there's an interview when he talks about, and there is this famous recording of a concert held in Norway, when, you know, two of the musicians are in a beef. They don't like each other. So one of the musicians is coming out here. And so if you're a friend and you like that person, you come up and play close with and bring him back.
That's really nice.
And you're riding, right? You're riding. So they also talk about, because if you come here and you move out, your horse is galloping. You have lost. You're no longer in contact. You're on your own, you know, and with no direction. So, but there is this edge here and there's this edge here, which are two different, you know, and that with friendship you can kind of bring someone, but you have to come up.
Attentive listening is kind of the thing. But I mean, I also had this, I mean, when we do this map and when we talk, I always become a little bit calmer, because then I'm like, yes, it is complex. It is complex. I'm that this kind of, the complexity is actually stabilizing me, but also to kind of do what we have been talking about, the lie, the good lie, the jump, that you kind of just get rid of all this and just whatever. You just have to sometimes make a statement that kind of put you to another position. And I'm thinking about this because I think this is something that is making really good groove. If someone is escaping and someone is picking it back, it couldn't be a tension if we didn't have this escaping. So this kind of making a jump that you don't know, like also getting the idea of making this enormous painting you did, is a crazy idea, which is kind of a projection. I mean, you invent something crazy for yourself. And then when you do that invention, that is a completely empty form in a way, when you decide on it. Not an empty, yeah, it is an empty form. So you have to make a decision, and that decision and then you have to kind of follow your decision, and then you fill it with meaning on the way. And I think this to being this doubt and this risk, and be sensitive and listening, but yet do this kind of, it has to have a form. That is what is extremely difficult to do, because this I can draw this as a map, but when do you decide that this is how it should be? And then you have to just stick with that and then fill it with meaning and adjust it.
But this is also for me conflict.
Yeah,
this is for me to understand how to deal with conflict or be responsible towards the collective, towards the community.
Yeah, but
because of course as an artist it's easy to be, but you're alone.
Yeah. But you have to be irresponsible. You have to be reckless. Sometimes reckless does not necessarily mean to be not taking care. So this taking a jump, being reckless, that is something that I've been thinking about in terms of public space and in terms of a general care for the audience, for yourself, for your community, for everybody. This kind of, the recklessness is not a polarized position to care.
No.
You have to do these jumps. And it feels like you're lying. But nothing happens if I don't do this. So there will be no groove if there wasn't a person that went out and a person bringing it in, I would say. Or do you think that the groove must exist between here? Because like this.
The groove is a collective effort.
Yeah. But you don't want everybody to be same.
You know, if you want to produce groove as an individual, you have to be. You have to have many voices. You have to be schizophrenic in a way. That's what. So for me, it's really, it's easy for me. What's difficult for me is the notion of community. I had this when I was working with film. I thought about film and theater, and so when I was working with film, both had to do with the collective effort, right? You have so many people. We're working together to make the film happening. But when you work with an actor, or when you want something to happen in the film, it's enough if it happens for a second, because you capture it and you have it. What happened before and after, it could be lovely or it could be hell, but you have it when you have it, and so you don't have to repeat it again. And so sometimes how you create that moment could be really destructive, destroying everyone you're working with or whatever. So it's almost like the method you have doesn't matter. You capture something and you have it. But when I thought about theater, maybe this is because I'm not working with theater, but I had this idealistic idea that, okay, a theater, you have to make it happen, not just once.
Yeah, every evening.
Yeah. And you have to create something that makes people want to come back and do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And it has to continue. It has to be permanent, but it also has to grow. It has to be the same performance every night, but always with making it alive again every.
Yeah, but
there is something about time and collective effort and how you work with, how you get what you want by really being evil or stepping over somebody's boundary or getting too tired or being too obnoxious, or doing it by talking and caring and creating a really good atmosphere, you know?
Yeah, but the musicians and the theater, they have an audience present while they do. And I think that is something that is extremely, I mean, it creates an extremely, I think it's an extremely helpful space. It could be a killing space as well, if it's an horrible audience. But you always have a presence of an audience that, and a decision, now I will do it. That really helps this improvisation. Whereas in art, and of course when we do public art, where there's an extremely long production series, I mean, times, how can you remain, and also just doing an exhibition, like you did in Umeå, like it's here, how can you remain, how can you get this presence, the presence of an act in the work, even if it's one, you don't have a present audience when you do your work, and two, this work needs to have this act within it, even though it's a painting on the wall.
So when I work with an exhibition, I think of the audience.
Yeah, of course, I do.
But in public, I got this question about what about the audience in public space, and I was a bit, I don't know. Do I even? Is there an audience? You know, one of the things with this thing, I think I said I was working with my monsters in this painting because I feel like this area is a monster, and it's a monster of care disguised, you know, surveillance and control disguised as care in a way. Yeah. And so one of the monsters is that it's a physical space produced as a kind of stage that you're supposed to look at. And so there is an audience of this area.
Yes.
But I don't want to be, and also it's this question of thinking of society as an exhibition, or, you know, as a, do we want to have an audience in public?
First of all, I think this is a super good question. Audience in public space are an audience that do not choose. They are affected by it all the time. That is one thing. Whereas when you go to a museum or a concert or a theater, you have decided you go there. So that makes a whole difference for me.
I know, but that's the thing we always talk about in public art. So you have to kind of be responsible for the fact that people don't choose to see public art. And it's really a discussion about how are we empathic or responsible towards people's emotions and reactions in a different, it's like this discussion that we always talked about, the instrumentalism in public art. Are we instrumental or not? But it seems like it's a dead end for discussion. There is something else with there's something else with what are the relationships that's created.
Yeah, but then we should talk
even
about
the audience.
I think we can actually get it from we have this idea of an audience to be passive, which is not true.
Yeah.